keep on having unhealthy dynamics, it's because you have to first start to heal yourself. And it starts with understanding what your attachment style is and how it influences your relationships and what you are attracted to and what types of patterns you have. Like, take it from me. I was in a toxic relationship for 3 years. My partner kept on dismissing me, and at the end of those 3 years, I was completely destroyed. This was a very, very, very challenging moment in my life. And for so long, I was blaming him. I was like, he's not doing this, he's not doing that, why is he like that? And then I started doing research on trying to understand why he was acting that way. And that's where I discovered the attachment styles. And I was like, oh, he's a dismissive avoidant. But by digging into the attachment styles, I realized I had one too. And the one I had was dysfunctional too, because I thought my reactions were normal. I'm like, everyone would react this way by being treated like this. But I was wrong. Like, my reactions were out of disproportions. They were really hurting myself. And I had to ask myself the question, why am I staying in this type of relationship? That says a lot about me. It's not so much about what the other person is doing. It's about, why am I tolerating this? And what are my own patterns and my own toxic traits? Because as long as we're blaming it on the outside circumstances, we are taking our power away. There's absolutely nothing we can do to change someone. There's no way we can convince them. The only thing we can do is start healing ourselves and changing ourselves. And maybe it's gonna break the relationship, maybe it's gonna fix it, but that doesn't matter, because the ultimate goal is your well-being, and then it's gonna move you towards healthier dynamics, healthier relationships, and healthier patterns that you have with yourself. So this is my goal with this video, is really to talk about the 4 attachment styles, so that by the end of this video, you are able to identify which attachment style represents you most. But bear with me, the goal here is not for you to put a label on yourself. It's not for you to attach yourself to an identity, because this is not going to be helpful. If you say, oh, I'm just this attachment style, you are solidifying it, you are crystallizing it, and sometimes we use this as an excuse for shitty behaviors. Like, you want to heal from this attachment style. The goal of knowing what your attachment style is for you to know what to do next to heal, for you to understand yourself better, gaining more awareness about the self and how you can move forward. So let's start with what the attachment theory is. So it's a theory that says that the relationship we had with our caregivers when we were young influences the relationships we have as adults. So it can be the romantic relationships, but also like the platonic ones, and like the ones we have with our boss, with our 𝗃𝗏, with our family, etc. And also the relationship we have with ourselves. Whatever we experienced in childhood with our caregivers is going to influence our emotional development. So now I'll dive into the 4 different attachment styles, and at the end of this video, I'll give you actionable steps that you could start implementing in your life to start healing your attachment style. So first of all, there's 2 categories. There's secure attachment style and insecure attachment style. In the secure attachment style, we have the secure attachment, and in the insecure attachment style, we have 3 different attachments. We have anxious-preoccupied, dismissive-avoidant, and fearful-avoidant, which is also sometimes called disorganized. It's also important to note that this is the textbook explanation of every attachment style, but we are humans and we are more complex than fitting into a box. We have different personalities, different experiences, different traumas, so you can resonate with an attachment style most. It can be that you're on a different spectrum. So some people could be like really anxious, other people can experience that but lean more towards a secure attachment style. You are human and you're complex and you're way more than with this one thing, but this gives an idea, so take what resonates. So let's start with the secure attachment style. It's important to know this because as you're moving from an insecure attachment style to secure, knowing how a secure feels or would react to something will give you guidelines on how to improve yourself. This helped me a lot in my healing journey, really like more studying how the secure person would feel or react in a certain situation. So the secure attachment style, I mean, they're comfortable with intimacy, they're good with communicating their needs, they're good with setting healthy boundaries. They overall like have healthy relationships. They're still gonna experience emotions and stuff, but they're gonna have an easier time to express it, they're gonna have an easier time to soothe themselves, and they're gonna be into a healthy interdependence. So there's like codependency where you're like depend so much on other people and less on yourself. There's There's being hyper independent, where you push away other people and you're like, I can do everything myself. And then interdependence is like you can rely on yourself and on others in a healthy way. So there's a good balance between both. So someone with a secure attachment style is going to find himself in that position most of the time. What this means in childhood is that the parents most likely were also secure in their attachment styles. They were able to meet the child for their physical and emotional needs. They were offering a support, but also letting the child discover life by themselves. They were reliable, they were consistent, they were good with expressing how they feel too, so they were good models for the child to learn from. Overall, the child felt safe in their childhood. So an example for that is you're at the park, you're a child, you fall, you scrape your knee, it hurts. You go to your mom, you're like, Mommy, it's hurting. And then she's like, oh, it's gonna be okay. She holds you, she cleans your wound. Then you are taken care of. So this registers as I can explore the world, but when I need to, I can also rely on other people to help me. Now, the strengths of someone with a secure attachment style, I feel like it's self-explanatory. They have an emotional intelligence, they're reliable, they have healthy boundaries, they're good with communication. Now that we looked at the secure attachment style, let's dive into the different insecure attachments. So let's start with the anxious-preoccupied attachment style. This one is going to display a lot of anxiety in relationships. They're going to crave closeness. They're going to want relationships. And oftentimes they're people that jump from one relationship to another because it's harder for them to be alone. There's going to be a lot of codependency, but there's also going to be a fear behind connection. Like, it's going to be scary for them because they're always going to be scared that the other person is going to retrieve themselves. So they're gonna want closeness, they're gonna go into relationships, they're gonna date, they're gonna want to like invest themselves in relationships, but they're gonna be hyper vigilant to any sign of the other person rejecting them. They often need more presence, like they want to text more often, they want to do a lot of dates, and they're gonna have a tendency to go more into jealousy and being clingy and stuff like that. So whether they are with a secure attachment style or other attachment style, if this person hasn't done work on themselves yet, if they're with a secure attachment style, they're also probably going to perceive a lot of rejections, because someone that's secure is going to have a healthy dosage of independence and interdependence. The anxious person is gonna perceive everything as a possible rejection, is gonna try to protect themselves by becoming hyper vigilant and observing every sign of someone pushing away, and they're gonna not necessarily see the truth of the situation, like, oh, the person is enjoying time with their friends but they still love me, but they're gonna see it as, okay, now they're rejecting me, and they're gonna create scenarios in their head, and then they might become really like obsessive, and that can sometimes lead into being manipulative. So sometimes they're gonna not answer their message to prove a point so that the other person starts missing them, and like use little things to manipulate them, like try to make them jealous or stuff like that. And they tend to lose themselves with other people. And you're often gonna find this attachment style needing to be with around people, but not just romantic partners, but really wanting to be around like friends and like having a harder time just being alone. So in childhood, there was a lot of inconsistency. So there was love, there was presence in certain moments. So that made them desire it. But then sometimes it was just taken away from them. Sometimes they could count on their caregivers, and other times they couldn't. Like other times they would be pushed away, they would be rejected, and sometimes they would be there. So that created a lot of insecurity and anxiousness within you of like, I don't know when I can rely on my caregiver. So it creates a lot of fear. Now, an example of this is like you're a little child, you're drawing something and you're so proud of your drawing and you want to show daddy, and you're like, oh my god. And sometimes you've shown him stuff and he was like, oh wow, this is so beautiful, and you received love in that moment. So you're like going to your dad in the hopes of like, oh, he's gonna love me, you know, for my drawing. And then you go to see him and he's like, look, I'm busy right now, like this is not important, I have better stuff to do. And he just literally like dismisses you. And in that moment, that just really hurts, and you're like, well, I don't know when I can receive love from my parent. It's unpredictable, you know. But Every attachment style has their strengths, and this is so important to understand because when we're healing our attachment style, we're not becoming a whole other person. There's strengths that every attachment style has that we get to keep, and they make us who we are. So people with anxious attachment styles can be very friendly, can be people you can count on, people who understands your needs a lot, like very empathetic, very present. They can be very loyal and also very sensitive, which makes them super intuitive and fun people to be around, you know, caring people to be around. Now, the next attachment style is the dismissive-avoidant. This is probably the most hated attachment style, and I feel for them because let's just consider that we're all humans and we all had experiences in our life, and every single human desires love, okay? Even the people that push it away. And this is the type of attachment style that's going to push it away because it's repressed, not because there's an absence of it or a lack of desire to it. It's simply repressed. So you're going to still see dismissives in the dating pool. They're going to want relationships, they're going to initiate, but then they're going to pull away. And it's an attachment style that receives a lot of hate because it can be very painful to be with a dismissive-avoidant. But I just want to bring a sense of humanity here. If ever you're in a relationship with a dismissive, it doesn't mean like tolerate these behaviors. You take care of yourself first, but also remember that they're human and they're trying their best and it's hard for them too, you know? So the dismissive-avoidants are going to be like the polar opposite of the anxious-preoccupied. So dismissives are going to have a lot of trouble with intimacy, a lot of fear around closeness. It's going to make them feel very uncomfortable. And what is to understand is that they have a lot of repressed feelings. They're not going to say things of like, I feel like this. Most often it's more going to be, I think like this, because their feelings have been repressed for so long, has been shut out. And that is where they feel safer. They're often gonna avoid conflict whenever it gets more serious. So they can be very charming, they can be like easy to talk with and fun to talk with, but whenever there's an attempt to intimacy from the other party, they're going to want to push away. They're going to be someone that moves really more slowly in relationships, that don't want to see the person as frequently or text as frequently. Like their personal space is very important. They're going to take a lot of time for themselves. They're going to impose their boundaries. They're not necessarily good at verbalizing their boundaries like in the healthy way, but they're going to impose them. They're going to impose their personal space and they won't feel bad about it because it's like, this is important for me. They're often gonna dismiss their partner's needs, but that's just because they do that with themselves too. There's gonna be a lack of trust, like they don't feel like they could trust relationships. They're really more on that independent side, and there's gonna be a lot of numbing their emotions. What happened in childhood is that they were with parents that dismissed their needs. So their emotional needs were not taken care of, and they registered that they cannot rely on other people to take care of their needs. So they completely suppressed it and became hyper independent. Like, because I can't rely on anyone else, I can only rely on myself. And because their parents dismissed their emotions to protect themselves, they dismiss their own emotions. So this can be something like you're a child and you're being bullied at school and you go ask for help to your parent. You're like, hey, they're teasing me. And then your parent is like, okay, stop crying, toughen up, this is not a big deal, be a man. Like often there's a lot of men that are dismissive avoidance. There's still women that are, but it's more predominant in men because there's a lot of dismission around emotions in men. Like we see that a lot in society. There's a lot of like, don't cry, be a man. And men were not received in the same way as women have been received in their emotions. So like it's more normal in society to see a little girl crying and then it's gonna be like, oh, it's okay, she's a girl, she's sensitive. And then a guy is like, no, be a man, be tough. And it just never stops. We are starting to break free from that, but it's still very present. And we can feel often when you're in the dating pool that everyone is dismissive. Like there's so much you feel like maybe there's like 80% of them are dismissive, but it's actually just like because they don't enter long-term relationships as much, they are more into the dating pool. And it's not impossible for them to be in long-term relationships, but if they are like really deep into their attachment style and they don't do the work, it's gonna be very, very, very hard for them to be in long-term relationships and like healthy ones. But they have the potential as much as all the attachment styles to heal themselves. But another thing I want to say is that it can be harder for them to start the process of healing because their emotions are repressed. So it can be harder for them to get to the point of being like, oh, I need to start working on this. There's an issue here and I want to heal, because they just repress it. And so it makes them slower into like their healing process. It takes them more time, but I've heard of a lot of dismissive, well, a lot. I've heard of some dismissive moving towards healthier relationships, and these can always keep a bit more of that independent side, but they learn to welcome someone else, and this other person also needs to be a safe space for them, you know. Now for the strengths of a dismissive avoidant, well, obviously they are really self-reliable, they're good with their independency. Since they are more emotionally detached, they are also more calm and they have an easier time with problem solving. Let's say if we compare to the anxious attachment that like loses themselves in someone else and becomes obsessive about that, and they can't think of anything else and they're just like in their triggers, well then they're gonna have an easier time to be like level-headed. They can be very objective and also very smart. Like, since they're not as much in their feelings, they're a lot in their minds, and career-wise they can be very successful because they put a lot more time building their careers than building their relationships. Now, last but not least, we have the fearful-avoidant. That is personally the attachment style I most resonated with. Not with every part of it, because I've never been in the extreme spectrum of it. This one is a bit trickier because they are going to be avoidant and anxious, but not in the same way as the avoidant attachment style, not in the same way as the anxious-preoccupied. So that's why it's also called disorganized, because it's kind of disorganized. They're often going to be in a too hot, too cold, too close, too far. They're gonna want relationships, they're gonna want closeness because they did get some to some level in childhood, but they're gonna also really fear it. So they're gonna be like, I want it, they're gonna go towards it, and when it's there, they're gonna wanna push it away, but they're also gonna want it. And so if they are with an anxious attachment style, their avoidant side is gonna come out more. And if they are with a avoidant attachment style, their anxious side is gonna come out more. So there's a lot of inner conflict of like, I want to be independent and I want to depend on someone. They're often going to be comfortable being single, but they're still going to crave that closeness. There's going to be a lot of difficulty regulating emotions. It's like a tsunami in here because it's going to be repressed, it's going to be numbed in some way, and then it's just going to pile up, and then it's just going to explode. This attachment style can have a lot of trouble soothing themselves. And they're also going to be hyper vigilant as the anxious attachment style. So they're going to be always observing every single thing. They're going to be noticing as soon as something moves, as soon as something is different, they're going to be noticing everything. But they probably won't react in the same way as the anxious attachment style. They're both impulsive in some way, but the anxious attachment style is going to like text you continuously, and this one might internalize a lot more, might explode at some point and be texting a lot and being like, why are you like this, and blah blah. But then there could be other moments where they're just pushing the other person away and they're like in freeze mode and they can't react. So like whenever there's a threat or a perceived threat, they're gonna shut down, they're gonna push away. And it's not like the anxious attachment style where sometimes they're gonna do that but to manipulate their partner into like, oh, they're gonna miss me or whatever, and I want to like give him some of his medicine. But the fearful-avoidant attachment style, when they go no contact and they push you away, it's not to manipulate you, it's just because they're overwhelmed and they don't know how to navigate this, and they feel like it's danger. It's like alert, danger, danger, don't go there. So this attachment style can easily sabotage relationships, especially with a secure or anxious attachment style, because they're gonna try to connect and this attachment style can push away. And then with a dismissive avoidant, well, they're gonna run after this person, but there's gonna be like a fear of being vulnerable, a fear of being rejected, a fear of being controlled, a difficulty establishing boundaries. For myself, for a long time, I didn't even know what my boundaries were until they were exceeded. In childhood, it could have been really unpredictable, and there could have been a lot of fear. So like the anxious attachment style, like sometimes there's love and there's care and the caregiver is there, and other times it's not there, but more in a way where you are scared, more in a way where there's a fear, like there's yelling or there's abuse. For me, I don't fully resonate with that childhood, but I do see, because it's not only your parents, you know, it can be a sibling too, it can be really people close to you. So I did have some situations that lasted a long time in my life that made me like crave the attention of someone, but then fear it because it was really unpredictable and dangerous at times. So like you're a child and you want affection, whatever. You go to your parent and sometimes they're there and they welcome you, and other times they yell at you. Other times they get mad at you. They get in a way where you're scared, where your heart pumps and you're like, this is danger. So this creates this wanting to connect but fearing it at the same time, like too hot, too cold, like where do I go? And so this person are really independent in some way and are scared to rely on other people, but they still go there. More so as the avoidant just repressed everything, and for them like it's all there and they feel everything. They definitely feel everything, but it's like sometimes it's repressed, other times it's all there. It's like there's no middle ground. It's really harder to be stable and soothed. The strengths of this attachment style is that they are really good with adaptability. They are very resilient. They are also really good to understand the needs of others because they always had to observe the other person to make sure that this was a good moment. So they're really good with empathy and understanding the turmoils of other people. So they have a lot of empathy, they have a strong compassion. They also have a strong sense of self. Like they can be very independent because there's periods of their life where they're gonna not go towards relationships at all and be really focused on themselves. But when they are in relationships, they can still lose themselves in the relationship. They have a tendency to think outside the box, be innovative, and they also understand complex emotions. Okay, now we're gonna dive into some stuff you can start working on to improve your attachment style. I hope that by now, by what I explained, you were able to identify which category you fit most in. And if you did and you feel like sharing, please let me know in the comments. Also, like this video and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of this. And send this video to a friend that you think is gonna need to hear this too. Now let's get into what matters most, healing. This is gonna completely transform your life. The more you heal yourself, the more that you're gonna be attracted towards different types of people. You're gonna not go towards what is dysfunctional and what is a trauma bond, as they call it. But you're gonna go towards something that is more aligned with your value, with your worth, with what you deserve as a human. You're gonna experience healthier relationships, which is gonna improve every aspect of your life. Like we thrive when we are loved, when we are in healthy environments. This is just human nature, but oftentimes we choose the comfortable chaos because we know it, the known chaos, instead of going in the discomfort of change, which leads us to peace and well-being. Like this is why oftentimes we're going to be attracted towards people who are not good for us, and people who are good for us. Let's say you meet someone that has a secure attachment style, you're going to find it boring. You're going to be like, there's missing something. That's just self-sabotage, okay? Like the more you heal yourself, the more you're going to be attracted towards that. And a healthy relationship doesn't need to be boring, okay? So one thing you can start with, which is super powerful, is to learn more about these attachment styles. Now that you know what your attachment style is, like dive deeper into it. Understand what the unmet needs are. Understand what your boundaries are. Understand what you need in a partner. It's okay for you to, let's say you're in the anxious attachment style, it's okay for you to need more presence. So maybe pairing with a dismissive or someone that wants to meet up once every 2 weeks is not the right pair for you. You don't need to change your whole self. Like, know what works for you, what is important for you, the type of presence you want, the type of relationship you want, the type of communication you want, what you need, where your fears are, where your own toxic patterns are, and where you can improve on. And I'll tell you at the end of this video a channel that I highly suggest for this. Like, she is amazing and I learned everything from her, and she is gold. Like, she has so much stuff on her channel that is going to be very helpful for you. So yeah, study your attachment style and also study the secure attachment style. Like that, it's going to give you guidelines on where you can improve. Now, depending if you're in a relationship or not, what you're going to do is different. But if you are in a relationship, like, put this in practice. Put being vulnerable and sharing your truth in practice in healthy ways. Practice communication is so important. And it takes, like, it's a two-way street. Maybe you're not with the right person to work on this. It's possible, okay? But maybe being more open about it is gonna help heal both of you. But that doesn't matter. Like, the goal is not to fix your relationship. The goal is to practice what you preach, is to solidify the person you are becoming. Because the more we practice it, the more we practice being the person that we want to be, the more we become that person, the more we left behind the person that we used to be and the patterns that we used to have. It's over time that you really see the change. So whenever you have the opportunity, practice these things so you're reinforcing the person you want to be. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't work out. It doesn't matter if in the end you are rejected. That's just like a byproduct. The goal here is for your evolution. It's for your healing. So even when it's hard, like, I had a lot of trouble with communication. So there's moments where I was like, okay, you just do it. And my voice was shaking and it was so hard. But I was like, if this person rejects me, well, I'm becoming better at communicating for the person that won't reject me. And the more I do this, the more it's second nature to just vocalize my needs now, something that I was unable to do before. So also this point, I feel like it's easy to say, but choose better partners, okay? Like, you are more aware now. You just watched this video, you have a lot more awareness, and you're gonna continue on that awareness. So don't choose the same partners that you would have chosen before having this level of awareness. Ask yourself more questions. Is this the type of person I want to be in a relationship with? And it's okay if it's not perfect. You might be repeating the pattern again and again, but you're going to get out of it quicker and you're going to notice the signs quicker. Like, be patient with yourself 100%, but try to choose people that are better for you. Try to start making that change and try to not choose the people that are not good for you. So if someone walks in your life and you're like, this doesn't feel right, trust yourself, trust your gut. And you don't need to stay in something that's just a repetition of the past patterns. Like, use your judgment. Also know that, like, relationships are mirrors. Every person that walks in our life is to reflect something to us. So it's never a failure, okay? This is always an opportunity to meet yourself deeper. So it can be that if you're in the beginning of your healing process, you're going to be repeating the same patterns for a while. It can be that it takes years, but let's just see this as an opportunity to look deeper at what we have within and practice what we preach, etc. But just always remember, relationships are mirrors. So whoever we are attracting or attracted to is because we have something to learn from that, the reflection they bring back to us. And when you're truly done with that person, that version of yourself, that type of person won't even have access to you anymore. And what will help you a lot too in your healing process is to learn to sit with discomfort, because this is highly uncomfortable. Healing this is really uncomfortable, like, it's hard, okay? So learn whatever attachment style you have, learning to sit with the discomfort. Because if you're anxious, let's say, and you're gonna be in reaction right away and want to text your partner and be like, why are you doing this, mama? Learn to sit in discomfort. Learn to be like, okay, let me not react right now. Let me see what's happening here. I did that a lot, okay? I had to meet myself. Be like, okay, let's take myself out of what he's doing, blah, 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 and how do I feel? Like, meet myself, sit with myself. And this is as true for the dismissive. When they want to shut down, if you want to shut down, like, learn to sit with the discomfort of those feelings that arise. Learn to start easing into the feelings and feeling them. So it's gonna look a bit different for every attachment style, but it all comes back to the same point. So yeah, when you're sitting with discomfort, you're learning to soothe yourself, you're learning to go inwards instead of outwards. You are not as much in reaction, but you're in a response instead. When a trigger arises, you respond instead of react. So responding is more calm, it's more settled, and you take time to respond. You don't need to react right away, you know. And then never forget to have compassion for yourself and love for yourself. You're a beautiful human. None of this, none of your fears and shortcomings take anything away from you. You are still as valuable and as worthy, and have compassion for yourself and remind yourself how beautiful and strong you are. And the more you build that self-confidence from within, the less you're gonna want to be paired with someone that reflects the opposite. You know, you're gonna want to pair with people who reflect that worthiness that you have. Ooh, I got so caught up. I forgot to share you the channel I suggest you to watch. Her name is 𝗃𝗍 GIBSON, the Personal Development School. I'll put the link in the description box. I hope this video helped. Let me know if you want to hear more about this, and